Hey guys, Adam from Tested here, filming in my cave. And as we are sheltering in place and quarantined for the foreseeable future, I've started live streaming from here in my cave, showing you things that I'm working on, answering questions you might have. And I'm hoping to do this on the regular every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. You can follow along by subscribing to Tested or following us on social media. And if you want to submit a question for me to answer, you can do that using Tested's brand new Discord server, which you can join by following the link below. Stay safe, stay indoors, stay away from each other. And here are some questions I answered during my last live stream. Do you document, Klaus B wants to know, do I document my videos by just on video, but also by taking step-by-step progress? That changes on a project-by-project basis. It depends on how obsessive I am about the project. I don't. So I shoot the videos that I'm doing because I'm telling a specific story. I'm making a product for consumption. But when I'm taking pictures for my own archives, I'm satisfying my desire for organization and for like geeking out about the stuff that I'm fascinated by. So like if I'm making a space helmet, I've got a Mercury helmet like that's under construction over there. And that's one which I will pull out and take some pictures of and then bring back home. I'll take those pictures, load them up on my computer, and I'll A/B them looking at some real Mercury helmets to kind of see what I'm getting right and what I'm getting wrong. The rickshaw that I made for Spot, that was a build I became so obsessed with that we built it right here. Every night I would take photos of it from a bunch of angles, and I would go home and I would sit in bed and just like look at pictures of it because I was totally obsessed with seeing it. In my creative projects folder, and I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. When I'm interested in a thing, let's say it's Mercury helmets, I will start a folder of just raw images, and I'll do Google search for Mercury suits, Mercury NASA suits, Mercury NASA suit development, and I'll just start. And I'll sort by large pictures because I want the highest res that I can get usually. And I'll just start dumping photos into that folder. When I've got 40 or 50 photos in that folder, then I will take a look at those photos in their totality. I use Adobe Bridge for my photo management. It moves the way I think. I'm not sure it's the best program. It's the best for me, and I've used it for years, and I freaking dig it. So I will look at this like amalgam of 50 or 60 images, and then I will start to notice there are categories, right? So with the spacesuit, there's gloves, there's boots, there's main suit, there's full suit, there's helmets. Then there are specific parts and pieces. There's the comm system, there's the boot lace system, there are the gauges that are attached to it, there's the wrist disconnects, there's the neck disconnect, there are the visors. Each of these becomes a separate category. And a category that always ends up in a project that I build is a category called Adam's Progress. And in this, I chronicle the build as it's going, but not rigorously, not like necessarily every day, but like every time I've reached some sort of milestone. Because what I love to do is go back over old builds and go watch the process. I mean, some of my early spacesuit stuff was so primitive and yet terrific. Like I'm really happy with it, but I'm also so much happier with the skill base that I have now. And the knowledge and institutional understanding that I've gained to make those things better. So I get a lot out of looking at old photos. Now, I also was raised this way. I have been taking regular photos of my work since I was 18. Since my parents gave me an Olympus camera, an OM1, and I started documenting the stuff that I was making back then, and I still have those slides, and I've digitized most of them. And that's an artist's thing. You know, my dad would take would take photos of all of his paintings so that he had slide representation of all of his paintings, and that's just good practice to make sure each time you complete something that you have that you have an archived copy of it. All right. Let's see here. Any good stories from touring with MythBusters Live and Brain Candy Live? Also, can you do an interview with your stage managers from both tours? All of those tours happened with a wonderful company called Magic Space Entertainment, run by my friend Lee Marshall and Gretchen. And oh my God, those guys are so amazing. We have traveled all around the world together. We have made many, many wonderful shows together. And yeah, it would be fun to do an interview with my tour manager, Will Brandstetter. Will is a force of nature. He was still in his 20s when he managed Jamie's and my first tour, or did he manage our second tour? I feel like it was, Will, you're going to have to remind me. Will Brandstetter is an incredible tour manager, a really difficult job, wrangling cats, different location every single day, 2 18-wheelers, 2 buses, 9 to 11 crew members. It's a small army moving around. By contrast, here's something that I love. Whenever you learn about a new industry, you learn the efficiencies of that industry. You learn it's like in Hollywood, everyone now knows that executives like to know what is the opening weekend gross, right? What are the pre-ticket sales? These are the metrics by which we can anticipate the success or failure of a venture. And in the touring industry, you can imagine, like between Hamilton or MAME or Cats or other touring shows, there are radically different demands upon each space and each touring company to to load a show in. So if you're like SHN here in San Francisco and you're a big union house with shows that come in every few weeks or every few months or stay for a year, no matter what, when that show's coming in, you need to know what you're about to deal with, right? And before I was a road dog, that was a question. How do you know? How do you accommodate all these different sizes of shows with such radically different amounts of technical needs? And it turns out the only metric anyone wants to know is how many trucks are in your show. How many trucks are filled with your equipment? That's it. Most houses know, well, if it's 2 truck show, that takes X amount of hours to load in. That means we need X amount of people to do it. Unless you tell us otherwise, yeah, we understand that. 5 truck show, that's a totally different kind of show. 1 truck show, for reference, I think if I'm remembering this correctly, U2, one of their tours in the like 2011, 2010, one of their tours was, now I'm getting the number wrong. It's either 86 trucks or 186 trucks. It's a gigantic army of trucks. And you can watch time-lapse video of a giant rock show like that setting up, and it's jaw-dropping, the scale of it. But that's way, way, way at the top end. Yeah, I think that is look, I'm working on another show, Hope Springs Eternal, that we will gather in auditoriums and celebrate stories and enjoy them together. And I would love to continue to participate in that wonderful enterprise. I love being on stage. I love talking to different audiences every night. It's a super invigorating mode of storytelling that's different than any other. And there's an immediacy and a connection in live performance, a temporal immediacy that is, it's not equated in any other form of performance or storytelling, truly. And I miss it. And weirdly, the other night, I had a vision of the opening of this new show. I'm going to call my collaborators and talk to them about it. But yeah, I will tour again. And when I do, I think you're right. I think doing an interview with the stage manager and the tour manager about the logistics of how such a thing works is a terrific idea. Arthur T wants to know, in your daily life, are you very routine? Do you schedule everything or just see how the day goes? Something in between? My wife and I wake up. She does her work. I've got my work to do. We usually just check in. Hey, what's your day like? Oh, I've got this. I've got that. Okay, you want to take the dog? I'll take the dog. Who's going to walk the dog at this point? When is the dog going to eat? Who's going to take care of that? We kind of work that out. And then it might change. So it's not like I'm super routinized. Is that a word? Let's say it is. You know what I mean. It's not like I'm hyper addicted to a routine. I definitely can get stressy when plans change. Yeah, that's something. I don't like that about myself, but I certainly can. My wife had to explain to me that I was super stressful to go through an airport with because of like the timing and the logistics of moving through an airport. I've done a lot of work on myself to relax in airports as I move through them. Is there any project, Z-Roy wants to know, is there any project that you're finally getting to with this lockdown, like something that you've wanted to do for a long time and didn't have the time? Yeah, but not creative projects. It's more like shop management projects. Hold on a second. I'm going to unplug there we go. I am, just to make sure we don't lose the stream like we have last time, I am now plugged directly into my network via Ethernet. So one of the projects that I did involved my beautiful mill here. This is Bridgeport Mill with a Dyna head. The mill itself was born in 1960. I think this is 67 and this is 68. It's just about as old as I am. And I had not trammed in the mill. So I know it looks like a big drill press, and in some ways it is because you can pull a lever and move a spinny thing down into a thing. However, because it is a giant hunk of cast iron, it can be locked to be super precise so that you can carve chunks out of big pieces of metal. And when you're doing that, you want the relationships of this mill to all be exactly what you expect them to be. So as you can imagine, I want to make sure that the spindle here is exactly perpendicular to the table on the X and the Y dimension. And I had not trammed in the head of my mill in years before the lockdown. But about 2 weeks ago, actually now like 2.5 weeks ago, I bought a beautiful stone, an India stone for basically, when you have a mill like this is the bed, this is the table. Things drop on the table and it can get dings in it, and those dings can actually keep things from sitting on it square. So you take a stone, you take down all those burrs, and then you take an indicator like this. This is an indicator, and it's basically just a little dial with a super sensitive little nub on the end. And there's a lot of different kinds of indicators. There's lever indicators, button indicators, distance indicators like that. And you basically use the indicator. This isn't a primer on how to tram a mill. It's just sort of the rough outline of it. You use it to make sure you're getting the same measurement across the whole X and Y dimension. And I was not. In fact, it turned out I was 10,000th off on this dimension, on the Y dimension. Is that correct? Yeah, on the Y dimension. And that meant that this head was like leaning forward. Yeah. So tramming this puppy in, I actually wrote on here, this is how I make notes to future me. I made notes on the side of my mill. Loosen bolts 1, 2, and 3 to adjust the worm nut. This is the worm nut up here. So you loosen all three of these bolts, but not super loose. And then you adjust this worm nut to bring it up. And because you're not on the center, it's a whole thing. You just kind of, there's a lot of trial and error to it. But I got it to within, I think, 3/4 of a thousandth. And on the YouTube videos that I watched, they were saying if you can get it within 1 to 2 thousandths, across like an 18-inch radius from the head, that's darn good for an old Bridgeport. 3/4 of a thousandth. I was really pleased with that, and it's locked down. So it's really, and frankly, then putting in my vise and making sure it was straight was trivial. It used to be that I'd have to shim it with all these bits of brass and soda can to make it totally level. And what I was doing was I was accommodating the fact that I had never trammed in the head. I was going through all this extra labor. Once I trammed in the head, I locked that vise down, and it was perfect on the, within just 5 minutes. It took so little time to get that vise accurate once I had done that. That felt great. Again, you can watch the YouTube video. You can watch the videos we made for Tested. I also fixed a long-term problem with my lathe, and in the process tore up this finger. There are some videos in which I talk about that. We don't need to go over it again. But funnily enough, my brain for long-term, big, deep creative projects is just not quite there. Yeah, I'm like this Eagle Moss thing, just like one instruction, one set of things to do, and then move on to the next one. It's dreamy. It's exactly what I need right now. It's like it's the maker equivalent of doing a puzzle. It's just the kind of workaday work that I need. It's funny. Years ago, God, it's a long time ago. This would probably be 2006. Yeah, 2006, 2007. I'm driving down Army Street, Chavez. I'm driving down Cesar Chavez Street with Tori Beleche. And we're coming back from a lunch. And Tori goes, "Hey, man, do you ever just wanna..." And then he paused as he was kind of trying to figure out how to say it. And I said, "Get a drawing from someone and just build the freaking thing." And he went, "Yes!" There's, when I was a model maker at ILM, I was there from 98 to 03. It was heavenly. It was absolutely heavenly. And at a certain point, I felt like I was done with it. At a certain point, I felt like I had done all the things I'd wanted to do with it, and I wanted more. I wanted to play in the bigger picture. I loved talking to the art directors. I loved doing design when they would let me. I loved participating on that front, and I wanted more of that. And I got more of that. MythBusters showed up, and I eventually became co-executive producer with Jamie of MythBusters, and that was the equivalent of getting more, right? More creative input, more control, more saturation, and that's fantastic. And every now and then, the idea of just coming into work and having someone go, "Hey, just build that. You have until Thursday." Like, that sounds super dreamy. Like, it's not enough to sustain a full creative life for me. But at the same time, it's deeply, deeply satisfying work. And that's what this is kind of for me. Oh, thank you. Don't forget to plug my computer back in. My team takes very good care of me. Let's see. Who is your favorite fictional maker from the movies? This is a great question. Look, I have been answering questions from fans and people for 20 years. Yeah, 18 plus years. So new questions, brand new questions, brand new concepts for questions are rare. That's a new one. Favorite maker from the film. I'll tell you, the first one that comes up is Gene Hackman from the David Mamet film Heist. If you have not seen Heist, well, you're welcome. Man, I want to watch that movie tonight. Heist is fantastic. Gene Hackman, Danny DeVito, Sam Rockwell, Rebecca Pidgeon, Ricky Jay. Yeah, it is a Oh, Delroy Lindo. Yes. Uh, it's a terrific movie. And Gene Hackman plays the ringleader of some jewel thieves. Jewel thieves, I think they're sort of general purpose, high level thieves. And he is making a part for a character in the film. And am I right? The actor that plays that character is Jim Frangione. I could be wrong about that, but that's off the top of my head. Anyway, the guy takes the part from Gene Hackman and says, "This is amazing. How did you do this?" And Gene Hackman says, "I thought of a man smarter than myself. How would he do it? I wondered." And frankly, that is a terrific technique that I have used to execute. I have used it to, like, there's been times I've been confronted with a problem and I'm like, I don't know how to solve this problem. And I thought, well, if I did know, how would I start? And frankly, just changing that frame, the frame of that question has given me what I needed to go forth with that. Um, he's a planner, Hackman's character in the movie Heist. He's a deep planner and he's a contingency planner. And at one point, he gives Sam Rockwell's character a little bit of education in how much contingency planning he does. He says to him, "Hey, did you ever?" I'm not going to try and do a Gene Hackman impression. I love Gene Hackman too much to try and impersonate him. But he says to Sam Rockwell, "Hey, did you ever step out on your girl?" And Sam Rockwell says, "Sure." And he said, "Did you make up an excuse?" And Sam Rockwell says, "Yeah." And he says, "If she didn't ask you for the excuse, did you waste your time in making it?" Which is a great question. I'm sorry, not for cheating on your partner. That's not the point of this story. The point of the story is a contingency plan you don't use is not a waste of time. And contingency planning is the soul of engineering because nothing ever goes according to plan. And you always need to have a plan B and a C and a D. One of my favorite things about some of the people closest to me, like my friend Davey in New York and my wife, is we all understand intuitively the same plan B and plan C, right? So when something, and Jamie too, actually, Heinemann and I also had that. When something doesn't go according to plan and you need to adjust and shift, it's really pleasurable to work around people who have the same kind of like, okay, kick into plan B. This is what plan B looks like. So Hackman's character is sort of a very pure depiction of that sort of advanced problem solving mind. So I'd say he is. Heist. Mamet is an interesting character. I'm just going to leave that there. I will say that Heist and Spartan with Val Kilmer and Kristen Bell, those are two of my favorite movies. Those are two of my like favorite go-to. Oh, let's just go to this world and enjoy the spit out of it. Spartan and Heist. Just watch both of them. You're welcome. Those are stunning. How come you favor Phillips screws over Torx? I think Torx are much easier to use. Joe Raven asks. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I need two Phillips screwdrivers. Effectively, I need two Phillips screwdrivers for 95% of the Phillips screws in my life. That makes them quite, I'm not saying it's better, but it's how I do it. I could replace all the Phillips screws in my life and in my projects with Torx screws. I'm not sure that's a smart thing to do. Look, if I was going to replace my Phillips screws with anything, it would be Robertson drives, because Robertson drives, the square drives they have up there in Canada, if I ever get to go to Canada again, Robertson drives inherently better than Phillips and better than Torx. I have had Torx strip out. I've had Phillips strip out. I've never had a Robertson drive strip out on me. Now, don't get Robertson mistaken for square drives, which look really similar, but aren't the same. Attachment methods, man. It's like no matter how much you do to keep up, you're never on top of it. Excuse me, I'm just going to enjoy a graham cracker here. Now we keep going. Sorry to talk with my mouth full. Okay, let's see here. Jordan Iggsting. All right. How often do you need new supplies when you work in the cave? Is it a struggle to get things you need given current circumstances? I am fairly well stocked here. I will show you how much I don't like running out of stuff. Here, I'll take you over here. So I use my belt sander a lot. I use this 48-inch belt sander and this, I think it's 72, a lot. And you can see here the number of belts that I have. This is way more belts than I need. That is super overkill. I don't need that many belts. But I also know that on a Sunday afternoon at 4, I'm not going to use up the last one and not have one. And that gives me great solace. When I have stuff that I use a lot of, like polishing rouge, I make sure that I have enough of it. When I get low, I order more. So usually I can see when I'm about to lose stuff. That being said, you know, the services that I order from, Amazon among them, some stuff arrives pretty quickly. Some stuff has taken a long time to get here. That's fine. Like I said, I'm not embarking on any brand new projects where I need to bring in a bunch of new supplies. And part of that is like I said earlier in the stream, part of that is because I'm not feeling that creative drive to do something brand spanking new. Another part is I'm not looking for ways to spend money right now. We're hunkered down, and hunkered down in every sense of the word. I don't know how long I don't know how long ad sales will sustain this channel. Here's hoping it keeps on going, but you know, who knows what could happen in the next few months. I don't know how long I'm going to have to shelter in place. And all of that means that I've cut my spending by about 90% in the last few weeks. And that's fine because, like I said, I'm well stocked. Okay, let me, I think I should show you this part. Let's see if, yeah, okay. So here's, like, you know, most shops, you have a drill index, right? And drill index is great. Sometimes you have just the one of fractional drills and one of metric drills and number drills and letter drills, etc. I went towards these SIOT containers that bigger shops use because I hate running out of stuff. So here we have everything from 1/16, that's about 62 thousandths wide, 1/16 inch drill bits, all the way down. Can you see here? See here? Here we go. All the way down to my big ass Deming bits like this. Ah, look at that. And I believe for most of my Deming bits, I have like two of each one. I will tell you, as I was working on my die filer, I was using some of my Deming bits to drill the cast iron. And I ruined a couple of them because I didn't know the proper methodology for working in cast iron. And yeah, I learned the hard way because those Deming bits can be like, you can get cheaper sets. And I started with a cheap set, but as I replace them, some of those big ones can be like $120. You want to be careful with those. And just before the lockdown, actually, Jen Schachter and I went through my Deming bit set and ordered I think 3 or 4 new ones just to make sure we were fully covered. So no, I have not had a difficulty keeping the shop stocked for all of those reasons.